Hey, y'all, let me tell you one of my favorite stories of all time. One time, Yinka Dare was sitting on the bench next to Jason Williams and said, "Hey, on Christian Laettner's jersey, what's that C stand for?" And Jason Williams goes, "Well, Yinka, what do you think it stands for?" Yinka Dare said, "Caucasian?" Best part about that story is Benoit Benjamin chimed in. He goes, "Yinka's so dumb. Everybody knows Caucasian starts with a K."
Oh, jeez.
Oh boy.
So what's up, y'all? It is April 16th, 2024. Let's get into this day in NBA history. April 16th, 1983. In the regular season finale for both teams, San Antonio defeated Dallas at Reunion Arena 132-120 by hitting 53 out of 75 shots. The Spurs set an NBA record for field goal percentage, 70-07 in a single game. Do you guys, any of you guys ever think that'll be broke for a team to shoot better than 71% for an entire game?
No.
It'll be tough.
Yeah.
It'll be tough. That is great. That is great percentage there.
Yeah, that's about 5 out of every 7. So there we go. We'll get into it. That was this day in NBA history. So if y'all don't know, the guy below me is Bob McAdoo, one of the greatest players of all time. Top 75, former NBA MVP. The dude once averaged 35 for a season. I might be a little bit high. I think it was 34 and a half if you want to get technical. Two-time champ with the Lakers, legendary career in the Euro League. Assistant coach for 3 titles with the Heat. Now currently a scout. Mr. McAdoo, how are you doing?
I'm doing fine. I'm doing great.
I want to say thank you so much for joining us. The very first question I have for you, and I've wondered this for so many years, I don't think nobody talks about this enough. Can you talk about the track and field high jump competition you had with another NBA legend, Bobby Jones, the Secretary of Defense in high school? How you guys had to battle it out in the high jump for the state championship?
Yeah, we did. It was my senior year, and I think it was Bobby's junior year. I think my highest that I had jumped was like 6'6" in the regionals. But when I got to the state, I knew I had to do better because, Bobby wasn't in my region because he was from down by Charlotte and I was in the Greensboro, Winston-Salem region. And I knew what he was jumping, 6'6". So I knew I had to do better than that in the state. And we were the last 2 guys left in the competition. And he went out at 6'6". And I kept going. I went to 6'8 3/4, and I won the state championship and stayed and had a state record at that time. I think it's been broken since, but at that time, 1969, I jumped 6'8 3/4 to win the state championship in the high jump.
And you're 6'9", right?
Yeah, I'm 6'9", and
So
jumped in Converse. They didn't have size 14 that back then, so they might have, but I didn't know anything about it. I was jumping in Converse tennis shoes.
I know this, I'm going to take it off into a different direction quickly because I always wonder, you guys had to play in these Chucks, and you see the shoes today, do you feel like I would have had a longer career, a better career, a different career? Would my knees still feel a little bit better today?
It's, you never know. I mean, Converse was the shoe that everybody wanted back then. I mean, they cost $10, which my mother refused to pay, my mother and father, because they thought it was too expensive. Thank goodness the high school supplied them. And they had the most thickness of rubber on the bottom. So when you compare them to the shoes now, it's like no comparison. But as far as lasting longer, it's hard to say. I know a lot of us, we played on cement, blacktop, that these guys don't play on now. They could, have hurt us too. Playing on cement. That wasn't the greatest thing to play on back in the day.
Yeah, cement with those shoes versus these nice shoes with these springy floors.
Yeah. Yeah, but the thing I don't understand when I watch these guys now when I'm scouting, I don't see anybody wearing high tops anymore like we used to wear. Everybody's wearing low cuts. No, I mean, I don't know if I could have made it wearing low cuts. I mean, I got my ankles taped anyway, but no, you don't even see high top tennis shoes anymore.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I still play a little bit, and I see the younger guys I play with. I have no idea how they play in those.
Yeah,
I feel like Kobe. I think Kobe was one of the first ones that I was seeing that was wearing like the low. The low. LeBron's his
He
are
said
pretty
it
much.
gave him more mobility, right?
That's what I think he was saying. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, it's especially for guys that big guys that's jumping all the time for rebounds. It's like, whoa, no way we would have played in low cuts. 82 game schedule is hard.
Neek, you got anything for him?
Yeah, so one of my questions is given the fact that you played in both America for the NBA and then also played overseas, aside from the differences in the style of play, did you have a league that you preferred to play in? Was it, I don't want to say easier, but did you prefer it here? Does it matter? Do you just like playing basketball, period, wherever?
I like playing basketball, period. Probably the only advantage of Europe was we didn't have as many games. The most we played was twice a week. We played a regular season Italian games on Sunday, and if we had a European Championship game, it was played on Wednesday or Thursday. The practices over there weren't as intense, so your body felt better, going into the games. That was the only thing. You didn't have the same stress. The travel was different. Which I didn't know because I had never been to Europe. But when you get to Europe, I mean, Europe is small compared to the United States. I mean, we in the European Championships, we'd go to at the time Yugoslavia, Spain, France, England. I mean, those were short hops for us.
Flights, yeah.
On a half. I mean, you go from Miami to California, you got San Francisco, you got a 5-hour flight. But Europe is, wasn't like that. It was shorter flights, but you don't know that until you're in Europe.
Well, I agree with you. I would figure that because I know like Italy basically is the size of Arizona, England's the size of Michigan, Germany's the size of Texas. So Europe's like a bunch of what we would consider states, and that's probably why we don't realize the difference.
Exactly.
My question for you is this: you were obviously, the first stretch five, and you did it very well. So what do you think how your game would translate now if instead of being born in, I believe you're born in 51. So instead of being born in 51, you were born in 01. Yeah, you were born in 01, and now with, YouTube and these sneakers, and we talk about training and things like that. How well do you think your game would translate? And then also, too, I wanted to ask, what were coaches telling you about, obviously you were a big guy and you were shooting it further out. Were they complaining about that, telling you to get in closer? Those are my questions.
No. The thing, once I got to high school and started shooting, most 6'8", 6'9" guys were near the post. And if you were 6'8" in high school, most teams only had 1 or 2 6'8" guys. Teams would always play zone around you. So I always shot from outside because my hero growing up was Earl Monroe. He played Salem State, which is 30 miles from Greensboro. They used to play North Carolina A&T, the HBCU schools. And I used to see Earl spinning and twirling. And we used to, I used to go in the park and I used to practice. So I got my outside shot together. And in high school, I was making them. And my coach, he never said a word. I mean, I'd be outside on 2-3 zones, making them from the top, making them from the corner. And he never stopped me. He never pigeonholed me as a post player, which, helped my development. And the older I got, the better I got with my shooting. And, the rest is history. I mean, I think I'm one of the few guys from my era that could play in today's game only because I was a stretch 4 or 5 back in the day. And it also helped me in Italy. If you got big guys in Italy that can't shoot, or in Europe that can't shoot from the outside, I mean, you're really not effective. I mean, when you look at the Europeans coming over here, to Luka Doncic, Dirk Nowitzki, these guys are big, tall guys that can shoot because the lane is wider. They play more zone in Europe, and if you want to score, you better be able to shoot from the outside.
So speaking of scoring, it might have been 2 years, but for sure I know 75, 76. You lead the league in scoring, and you don't make the All-NBA team. How is that even possible?
Well, it's politics.
With like 14 boards a game.
Yeah, it's politics. It's politics in sports. It's I say the same thing with the top 50 when it came out. My sons were the ones that pulled my coat to it. They said, "Dad, we sifted through all the guys that was on that top 50. You were the only MVP that didn't make it. You were the only scoring champ that didn't make it. How is that possible?" And when I heard that, I was kind of in shock too, because the people, it's like I was forgotten. I don't know why, but it's like they just kind of overlooked me with my scoring. I mean, if I'd only played 5 years in the league, I think my first 5 years I was averaging about 32 a game. You'd have to put me in the top 5 players of all time. What I did, because I was averaging 32, 15 rebounds, 3 block shots, but nobody took that into consideration. And it could be because Buffalo was not a franchise anymore. Buffalo went to San Diego, and then San Diego went to LA. And
I still call the Clippers the Buffalo Braves, so you know. But I'm a Laker fan, so I do it on purpose.
Don't hold it against them.
They getting their own arena, right?
They are finally, yes.
Yeah.
Too bad it's in the wrong city.
I think they'll put any Buffalo or Clipper players up in the arena where the Lakers play. They got that reserved for all the Laker.
Yeah.
Mm.
But just to your point, right? In your first 5 years, for those that don't know, Rookie of the Year, I believe second in MVP. Year 3, you win the MVP. Year 4, second in MVP. And you're averaging 18, but then it's 30, 34, 31. You're right. Your first 5 years.
And second twice for MVP.
Yeah, second twice. Yeah. You sandwich the win with 2 second place. Yeah.
And it was just weird the way they picked the top 50 teams, because it's no need of me naming names, but a couple of guys on that top 50, I torched when I play them, just torched them. And
hey, well, now that you're saying that wanted to be one of my questions, actually. Since you missed the 50 team, what was your initial reaction? Because I'm sure you thought you belonged. Most of us did as well. And then when you made the 75 team, what was your reaction in comparison to those two things, since you brought it up?
Well, when I made the 75, the only thing I could do is laugh it off. I said, "Hey, thank goodness I lived another 25 years to see," because a lot of players don't make it till they're 70 years old. So I was lucky I was able to make it. So my boys, especially my older play, they recognized. But the top 50 was really. Not making that was really painful, and I know a lot of people from Buffalo, fans, they wrote in, complained. They couldn't believe it, because I was one of the top players in the league for so long, and to be left out like that was a big omission. And I think they made a mistake when they brought out their top 50.
Oh yes.
What you got,
And,
Nick?
and I, no, I just want to say on the top 50 thing, because I want to stick on it a little bit, and I don't mean to kind of bring it up because I'm sure because it was a travesty in my opinion, but to be left off the top 50, because I'm not going to name names either, but feel free if you want to name some. But there was a handful of guys that I didn't think deserved to be there, and you were the one name, the first one that popped into my head that said, how is Bob McAdoo not in this list? And then when the top 75 comes out, you're 45th.
Yeah.
So you're in the top 50. So it's like,
yeah.
Did your stats change in the next 25 years after that first list came out?
No.
It's those politics.
Did they throw some respect on your Italian career?
Something must have changed.
A couple of, reporters that came and they thought if I hadn't played in the NBA, I'd have made the Hall of Fame just from my Italian career because of what we did over in Italy. I know I was very proud, because I went over there and competed. A lot of guys would go over there and just collect the check, but I wanted to win. And we had in Italy we had a pink paper, which is called the Gazzetta dello Sport, which is the most important paper in sports paper in Italy. And if it had 20 pages, 18 of them would be soccer. When we won the EuroLeague championship and the Italian championship and the Italian Cup, something that never been done, they put us on the front page of the Gazzetta dello Sport, which had never been done in its whole history. And, the coach told me that because he had been over there for 20 years. That was a major achievement there because, soccer is king over in Europe. And we made the front page of the most important sports paper in Italy. That was, and we were the toughest ticket to get in Italy too. I mean, people packed to see us play because I was in Milan. We had one of the better teams. And of course, I'd come in from the Lakers. They wanted to see me play. So, it was a great experience for me. I had just as much pleasure winning over there as I did in the United States in the NBA.
And you were there for 7 years, was it?
Yeah, really 6. I came back my 7th year because after my 6th year, I was asked to be a basketball technical advisor in a movie. So I was in Toronto in South Africa, and I went back to Italy to see some friends and a team. They wanted me to play a couple of games for them, which I did at the end of the season. So they counted that as a 7th season. I wasn't there the whole season, but that was their 6th season. And the 7th season, I was there for about maybe 4 games I played. But it was great. I was in Milan for 4 years. I was in a team called Forlì, in the city of Forlì, for 2 years. And the last team that I played, the last 4 games, was Fabriano. They were kind of like in northern central Italy. So it was great being over there. Great experience for me.
Yeah. So my question for that one, and then I'll let these guys ask some, but was so you're on the Lakers. Why do you go to Europe? Was it just there was an opportunity there? You always wanted to play somewhere else? Was the NBA just kind of time to do something different? What was that thing that said, you know what, I'm going to do this?
The NBA has changed tremendously since I left in the 80s. The NBA back in the day, started getting in the 30s, they were trying to move you out. They didn't take into account that, you could still healthy, you still play. They were moving players out. After 30, they got you through. So after I left Philly, Philly was my last team. and I had a good year. I think I was averaging 15 and 7 coming off the bench, and 15 and 7 now would get you $100 million contract. But Philly messed around. They didn't want to sign me. I said, why am I doing this? The team in Milan wanted me, and I wanted to, you know, so I decided to go to Italy. You know, it's no, I'd already played on team, so I said, you know, other team up there played. After I was a month, Philly tried to come back and sign. You know, I wasn't playing games, and you know, I signed the contract. And they know they made. I mean, after we won the EuroLeague championship, we played first Open the year after I'd been in Italy, and we came back and we played the Russian national team and the Milwaukee Bucks. You know, I 40 points. I was 36 years old. The premier forward at that time was Terry Cummins. I got like 40 on him, and I was 36 years old. I mean, I think the Lakers and Philly saw that they made a mistake. You know, I could still play. LeBron wasn't the only guy. Kareem wasn't the only guy. You know, you got a handful of guys that could still play from age 35 to 38, 39 years old, and I was one of them. And I took all my energy and my experience over to it. You know, just the way the league was then at that time.
Nick, you got anything?
I do. So one of my questions is, as far as the players and the competition that you had, was there a specific player or even team that made you mentally lock in a little more? Like, oh, we're up against them tonight, or we're up against them tomorrow. Did you have anybody like that just made you, for this particular game, this particular series, I have to lock in. I have to be at my best. Not to say that you weren't playing your best every night, but was there any player or team that just made you hit that switch?
Well, in the West, it was the San Antonio Spurs. You know, we had to always get past San Antonio to get to the championship. You know, they had Artis Gilmore who could match up with Kareem. They had George Gervin, Gene Banks. They had guys that could kind of match up with us. And once we got past them, in the East, it was either the Boston Celtics or the Philadelphia 76ers. You know, I mean, you had to have your A game, or it was not going to be a pretty scene. You know, I mean, Boston had, you know, Hall of Fame players, Philly Hall of Fame players with Moses, Julius, Bobby Jones, Boston, Robert Parrish, Larry Bird, Kevin McHale, Cedric Maxwell. He didn't make the Hall of Fame, but he was the MVP in one of those series against the Houston Rockets. So, you know, you had top level players on these three teams that you had to be ready for every time you stepped on the court against them.
Now, my question is for this, and this is going to be a little out of left field, but I'm tired of the disrespect on it. A while back, and this was years ago, I was looking up NBA greatest mustaches, okay? And you weren't on the list. Okay, we're talking, we had guys like Larry Bird, Adam Morrison, you know what I mean? Carmelo Anthony. Now, the chops were legendary in the 70s, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But your mustache, like, well, I don't understand. There's that, I don't know if you've ever heard the facts, they're on the internet, but one of the facts is behind Bob McAdoo's mustache, there is no lip, just more stash. So I don't know if you've ever heard them like, well, now there we go. See, look at that. The chops. I want to know if we make a shirt and we work out some deal with you, if we can make a silhouette of the chops, the mustache, say McAdoo's mustache, put some respect on it, and we can start moving those shirts. I want to know if we can work out a deal with you.
The Macastache.
Hey, I'm working on mine. If y'all can't tell, I'm working on mine.
Hold on.
Trying to get there.
We hear Mr. McAdoo. He froze. You mind if we do that? Can we work out a deal?
That's fine. I never heard that one before. I'm fine.
But you mind if we start doing the shirts? I mean, we put a little respect on your name. We get it out there. because I don't know how we had top 10 mustaches and you weren't in the list.
Get it out there. Get it out there.
There you go, Floyd. You heard it. That's your next shirt.
I heard it. That's the next shirt.
That's a good one.
Speaking of shirts,
Hey,
a shameless Laker fan, I'm gonna say. Obviously, listen, you won championships with the Lakers, but obviously some of your best years were with the Braves. But I noticed that picture behind you. Do you think of yourself as a, oh, he took the picture off. I'll wait till he comes back just in case.
how do I get it back?
I
don't know if you might have to back out, sir, and then click that link I sent you and then come back in. You might have to come back in that way too. I can't tell you how to put the photo back on.
Oh, there you go.
Oh, he's back. Oh. No, he's coming out. So
let him
he'll be
jump
back
back on.
I will. So, oh, here we go. Put him back on.
Okay.
There he goes.
There you go.
There you go.
So I'll go back to the question.
We see you.
I see. Yeah, we've got you. You're good.
Okay.
So I see that picture up there. So
Yeah.
obviously, like I said, some of your best statistical years and awards and stuff are with the Braves, but the chips are with the Lakers. Do you feel you're more a Laker, a Brave? Is it 50-50? Does your heart say, hey, I'm a Laker a little bit? And listen, I'm selfishly a Laker fan. That's why I'm asking, but I consider you a Laker. I say you're a Laker all-time great. I don't say you're a Brave all-time great. How do you feel?
I feel probably more Buffalo because that's where I got my start from. Jack Ramsey, who was my coach, let me go. My Laker years, even though I was more successful as a team, I came off the bench, which wasn't. I wasn't happy with that, but because I had been in the league for 10 years and won a championship, I put my ego down and I did that. It wasn't something that probably should have happened, but it did. That's why I say I'm probably more of a Buffalo Braves guy than the Laker guy. Which nobody knows because a lot of people don't even know the Braves are the LA Clippers now.
Well, that's why I keep saying it so that people know. And you think you and Kareem working in the front court tandem, that would have been because I'm assuming that's kind of why they wanted you to.
That was our best lineup.
Yeah,
that was our best lineup. That's when we usually beat people when they put me and Kareem out on the floor. I remember I was watching First Take with Stephen A. Smith one day, and they were talking about the big three in Miami. LeBron, Dwayne Wade, Chris Bosh, and they talked about somebody else about being the top three. And I got a hold of his number and I said, you guys got to go back over history because the Laker team is probably one of the only teams that could field 3 MVPs out on the court at the same time. And I think later on, if I can think about it, OKC was able to do it. James Harden, Westbrook, and Durant. But the Lakers, we had 3 MVPs out on the court at the same time, and nobody even talked about it. But I mean, that's what happens, the older generation, 2 decades ago, people kind of forget the history and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but we talked about translating to today's game. If you think about it, you get Magic in the open court, kicking it out to you, who could shoot from the outside and Kareem down low.
Yeah,
that's a death lineup now.
It's a different dynamic. You see stretch 4s and 5s. You don't see guards as big as Magic, even though you see more big guys handling it down the court, but not orchestrating it on the fast break like Magic. And you definitely don't see a center like Kareem, who, you know, is going to got the most devastating shot I've ever seen, the sky hook. You know, I mean, nobody's even duplicated that shot. People don't even play inside basketball no more. Everything is jump shots now.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's funny when people try to speak negatively about Kareem and his hook shot, and I always tell them there's this great Bruce Lee quote, and he said, "Never fear a man who practices 10,000 kicks. Fear the man who practices one kick 10,000 times." And I immediately always think of Kareem.
Well, remember they had to change the rules because of Kareem. You know, they had to change. You know, you got certain guys. You know, Wilt Chamberlain. They had to make the lane wider, and Kareem. They took out Duncan because he was so devastating with that shot. You know, never seen anything. It hadn't been repeated anything at all like that. You know.
Hey, but Mr. McAdoo, if you were playing in today's game, like he was saying, you know, and we're translating to game, how many threes are you shooting a game?
It's hard to say. Remember, I grew up playing in the 60s and 70s. We didn't have a three-point line, I think, until about my 9th or 10th year in the league. So we didn't practice that shot. That shot was a long, I mean, I used to shoot them from the corners deep. That's 3, but out top was, you know, when I was the coach with the Heat, you know, that shot was long distance for me. I could shoot the corners, but it's something you gotta, you know, you gotta get used to from high school and up and college. We never had, you know, I didn't have a 3 in high school, I didn't have a 3 in college, and just wasn't used to shooting that distance, you know.
Hey, Fluent, who's your favorite player of all time?
Magic.
Hey, Mr. McAdoo, who's a better passer, Ernie D or Magic?
That's hard. That's a hard one.
Because I know what you said in the 80s. I know what you said in the 80s.
It's hard. That's a hard one there. Magic, what made Magic so dynamic was his size. You know, he could see over, you know, the biggest guard that people put on him was 6'5", and that didn't bother him one iota. He could see over the defense all the time. Ernie D was smaller, but I mean, it's almost like he had eyes in the back of his head. He made behind the back passes. If somebody was face guarding, that ball would come through their arms. Both of them were great passes. There's just, like I said, it's hard to pick. Magic's size made him dynamic, and Ernie's vision of the court made him dynamic. I mean, that's what helped me win the 3 scoring championships, because Ernie was just fantastic with his passing.
Neek?
I know you still watch the game till this day. And I know you have your favorite teams and everything like that. Is there anything that you see in the game today that you somewhat wish could have been part of the game during the era that you played in? Any change?
The salary.
I knew that was going to be the answer. I knew that was going to be the answer.
These guys make more in 1 month than a lot of us made our whole careers.
Ooh, can I piggyback that? Tom Chambers once told me a mid-level player now makes $20 million a year. I didn't even make $20 million my entire career. That's what Tom Chambers once told me.
What, 20 million? Whoever even got close to 20 million?
Well, he meant for his entire career.
It took Magic getting a $1 million a year for 25 years to make that kind of money.
Exactly. So it's the only change. It's the salaries. It jumps, you know, tremendously. You talking about I came in the league 1972, and people were talking about, oh, generational wealth. Get out of here. Generational wealth is what Damian Lillard, LeBron, Stephon Curry, that's what those guys are making.
I guess Jalen Brown, right? $300
Thank,
million.
thank you, Jalen Brown. Thanks for helping me. It's so many guys now, but yeah, Jalen Brown is the highest paid player now. I mean, you talking about if you put that money back, I know inflation makes everything, but I mean, franchises didn't even cost that.
No.
Hey,
I wanted to ask you too. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
I wanted to ask you too, especially since we're talking about game, which big man had the best handles back when you played? Because now we're seeing guys like Bam able to dribble, things like that. And obviously back then they didn't want the big man dribbling, the coaches and all that. Which big man had the best handles?
Let me think about that. Coaches really didn't let big guys. If you want to call George McGinnis a big, George was 6'8". He could handle. You just didn't see too many big guys handling the ball. I mean, I would take it off the board and go coast to coast sometimes, but not as much as Bam. I mean, you see guards, like I watched some of the Laker Pelican game, and they would give it to Anthony Davis and let him bring it up the court. But like I said, the game is different now. If they did that back in the day, a big guy, if Bam was handling up a court, a guard would come right to him and make him give it up. He'd get right in his jock strap and make him give it up. But they don't play defense like that now.
I feel like that's one of the things though that Magic really opened up, right? Because when you had a 6'9" point guard, I think it gave them the green light to try to start, allowing some of these other guys that were 6'9", 6'10", say, hey, let's see what they can do. And I think that was really the catalyst for that change, because after him, you had, all these other guys. Like, I don't think there's a Tracy McGrady, a Grant Hill, even Scottie Pippen initiating the offense for the Bills, if it wasn't for kind of Magic doing it.
That's the game evolving. It's just like when I started jump shots. Nobody had seen big guys shoot jump shots from the range that I was shooting from. And like you said, with Magic handling the ball, George Gervin, these guys, Tracy McGrady, they saw 6'7" and 6'8" handling the ball. It's like, hey, he can start the offense for us. He doesn't turn it over. Guys work on their handles now much better, being big guys. And you've never been a big guy. All big guys want to be guards. And
That's a shame.
Want to be big guys. That's never changed. That's been like that from the beginning of time.
Yep.
But had more control back in the day. Now, these guys can, they have the talent to do it. And nobody knew Bam could do it. You never saw Bam handle the ball not one time at Kentucky. You never saw him shoot at Kentucky. All they did was throw lobs to him. His game evolved since he's been with the Heat.
Tony was fortunate enough. He got to sit down with Bob Pettit. And I'm not going to get into the stuff that they talked about other than this one, where he had mentioned, because we had talked about how some of the younger fans, younger players don't know the history of the game, don't speak very kindly about the history of the game. But he's mentioned one thing that kind of stuck with me, where he said, I don't really see that, because when I see these newer players, younger players, when I run into them, have conversations with them, etc., they're always very respectful and thank us for what we did for the game and how the game evolved because of the things that we did. Do you find that, because you're obviously still scouting and obviously you're with the Heat, so you've interacted with a lot of the younger players. Are they aware of the past, and do they thank you for being a big man who shot the ball, playing with 6'9" point guards? Do they respect that part of it?
Some of them, could care less. Some of them think the game started with Jordan or it started with Magic and Bird. They don't go past that. And then you have some that, really study the game and know about, the history in the past and what certain players did. And I'm sure when, these top 50, top 75 lists come out, some of them will look up some of us and they'll see what we did at certain times. And, they when they run into you, some of them give you the respect that we deserve. I mean, because we played the game, we played it hard. It was different. Like, man, I look at the All-Star game now. The All-Star game is not played the way we used to play it.
No,
It sucks. It's awful to watch. It is awful to watch.
Yeah, the All-Star game was like a playoff game for us. We were playing hard defense, and now no defense at all. It's layup after layup after layup. And, when I talk to, a lot of the older players, it's like they just turn it off. They don't want to see it.
Yeah. It's interesting that you say like they don't go back, beyond Jordan, beyond Magic, because I put a clip together where I showed 3 clips: Kuzi going behind the back, Elgin Baylor during a Euro step, and Wilt hitting a fadeaway jumper. And they were like, no, those didn't exist back then. So I just showed you that they did. All you have to do go back and look. And I literally thought their heads were going to explode because they did not think any of that was being done.
Well, that's how it is in not only basketball and all. Everybody think the modern technology is, the best, the newer guys, the best. And what just this popped up in my head several times. It's like you look at, sometimes I'll study history and I'll look at the pyramids in Egypt and how they were built. And I've heard engineers say they can't produce that today. How did they do that? That was over 1,000 years ago. Somebody was smart enough to do something like that. And they can't figure out, they didn't have the machinery that we have now. And they saying they still can't produce what the pyramids did in Egypt. And it's like basketball, like you said, Elgin Baylor. Elgin Baylor was one hell of a player, had all kind of moves and stuff. Julius Erving. And you hear guys now say, oh, these guys, they couldn't play with us. Yes, they could. Wilt Chamberlain could. Yeah. I could. Not all of us, but, because
Sure.
you can't take of course, the athleticism is much better now. I'm not gonna say a statement like I heard Sue Bird say the other day that Caitlin Clark is gonna see what it's like when she goes to the WNBA. That young lady can play. I don't care if it's WNBA or what. She can play. Some of the older players, get like that, but like when people talk about shooters, they talk about me. And when I look at Steph Curry and Klay Thompson, those guys are 2 of the best shooters I've ever seen in basketball. And I've been watching basketball since the 60s. I've been playing since the 60s, scouting. Those guys there could play in any decade too, just by the way they shoot the ball. And the talent is more talent now. Granted, I give them that. That's the truth. There, it's more talent. Whether they, basketball, smarts, IQ, it's hard to say. It's really hard to say. I know people are always trying to compare Jordan and LeBron. I mean,
We try to avoid that on this show.
Yeah, I mean that's a hard. How you gonna do that? You know,
No,
this
it's
guy.
just been beat to death. We just avoid
Yeah,
that on this show. It's just been beat to death.
yeah,
And
it's
there's such different players in
a
different eras.
different era. Yeah,
Hey,
It's almost, yeah. But go ahead, Tom.
no, I want to say, Mr. McAdoo, this is the analogy I want to give you because the reason why I started this is because I'm tired of the disrespect the old players get. Because
yeah,
greatness always translates. Best
yeah.
and great are two different topics, and I'll just give you an example. If you had a 2024 Kia versus a 1962 Corvette, which is the greater car? It's not the car with the Bluetooth, and it's not the car with the backup camera, and it's not the car with all these features that it didn't have. A 62 Vet is still greater than a 2024 Kia, even though the Kia can do more. Because what that Vet was versus its time was so much further ahead of everything else. Those are the type of analogies I give. So why these players are better in some regards, more athletics, like you said, but they grew up with YouTube. Here, I'll put it this way. I was born in 1984. I didn't have internet as a kid. My parents were in and out of prison, had a whole bunch of problems. I didn't grow up in the best scenario and all that. I didn't get no basketball camp. I was not going to no basketball camp. I couldn't turn on YouTube and learn my own drills from home like these players can now. These kids can now. So that's what I tell about a lot of these players. A lot of these players, if they would have been transported 50 years different, they would still be great because they'd have all this different advantages. You see what they did in Chuck Taylor's riding trains, you know what I mean? In cow shit, you know what I mean? Sharing the cart with livestock, trying to get to the next town, you know what I mean? And it just really, really pisses me off that they say shit like that because they just don't know. Then they talk about the dribbling. You could only put your hand on top of the ball. You couldn't put it anywhere else. So, and to be crass, just really quick, if I could just say this, fuck you if you don't think Bob Pettit is a top 20 player, and fuck you if you don't think Bob McAdoo is in the top 50. That's where I'm at.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
that was crass, but
Tell them how you feel.
I've had this conversation a couple of times, and I've tried to be objective with it. And like, I love tennis. Okay, my son is a tennis coach down here. My daughter's still playing pro tennis. I go to the Miami Open. I go to the U.S. Open, and I've watched tennis players since I first started. I watched Arthur Ashe beat Jimmy Connors at Wimbledon. That's when I first picked up a tennis racket. When I start looking, that's why I might have an exception with you with the Corvette and the Kia. When I look at these tennis players now, they're bigger, stronger. They got the graphite rackets. I look at Alcaraz. I look at Federer when he was doing Novak Djokovic. And believe me, I love Arthur Ashe. I love Jimmy Connors. I love Bjorn Borg. When I see these old films and I see the speed is not even close to what Alcaraz and Sinner and Djokovic, the way they play. And I've even heard McEnroe with his commentating say that they wouldn't have a chance against these guys. The physical, they have masseuse, they got all these things going for them. It would, if you put them together, it would be no contest, and that's with tennis. And it's probably the same with basketball. I mean, you don't want to admit it sometime, but these guys, the way they jump and they run, as a whole, it's just different. I know I see it with my own eyes in tennis, even with the women playing. Because I watch the women because my daughter's still playing. Chris Everett and them do not hit the ball like Iga Swiatek and Coco Gauff. It's not the same. Not the same.
But it also comes down to math. And hear me out when I say it comes down to math, because since 1990s and something like, there's a billion more people on this earth. So the
Yeah.
odds are you're going to get a 7'4" Frenchman who can dribble and shoot and do more things, because just volume. There's going to be more talent. There's going to be more opportunity. So I think it's a combination, like you said. They watch the old game. The game evolved. You know, I didn't pick up a basketball until high school.
That's the thing. They play more basketball than us. They got AAU. I mean, my youngest son played AAU. They might play 3 games in one day. That's why you see freshmen on these college teams. They look like veterans at 17 and 18 years old. They played twice the amount of games that we've played. I mean, they don't have the same basketball IQ because they just roll the ball out and let them play. But I mean, the athleticism and stuff is off the chart. I mean, LeBron has had a trainer since he was 10, 11, 12 years old. I mean, who had that growing up? You know, it's just different training now. You know, it's stronger. I think I saw the numbers they were talking, like the average weight, the guys are 20 pounds heavier as a whole in NBA now than they were when I came in 1972. You know, I mean, that's a big difference right there. You know, guys are just stronger, bigger, jump higher. Like I said, the 3-point shot, they've been shooting them since high school, something that I didn't do till my 9th or 10th year in the NBA. It's just
before high school, my son is 10 and he's shooting his threes already.
wow.
So
That's
he's pretty good too. So fingers crossed.
Okay, that's amazing there.
Yeah, you know? I'm like you. I didn't have a 3-point line when I was 10.
Yeah. So, but
Nick, you got one?
I know I hate to disagree with you about the cars, but come on, those Corvettes, they didn't have airbags in them to help save.
No. But actually, no. I'm not disagreeing with all that. That's my whole point. The Kia is a much better car than a Corvette, but the 62 Vet will be a much greater down. Nobody is going to be trying to collect a 2024 Kia, but bunch of people try to collect the 62 Vet.
You never.
That's
know.
what I mean by greater. It's a better car.
You never know 20 years from now. 20 years
from
now.
No one's taking a 2024 Kia.
Well, you never know. You never know.
I agree with that. You never know. But I will say the law of probability says 99% they're not doing it.
Yeah. Well, think about this. I'm just talking out there. What the hell I know?
Right.
Remember,
what do you know? What do you know about basketball?
No. Suppose the company goes out of business, like the DeLorean.
Right.
You can find the DeLorean now. What would that be worth?
I'll tell you what, but here's my pushback on that. I agree with you on that. I agree with that. The only problem is there's 30 years of Kias and there was only 2 years of the DeLorean. So you can only get 1 to 2 years models. That would be the biggest difference. But I have a question for you, because I don't know if you know this. Fluent over here, he's a big conspiracy theorist. Okay. So I heard one involving you, and I wanted to ask you about it.
Oh boy.
Okay, so I heard Commissioner Kennedy was going around telling people not to draft you. That's why you didn't go to the Blazers, number one, and that the Squires had secret plans to get you, and they were trying to get you. So I kind of wanted to ask you what was going on with that, why the Blazers didn't draft you. Was Kennedy really telling people not to draft you, and were the Squires secretly trying to get you?
I don't know what he did, but I can tell you why I didn't get drafted by the Blazers. Blazers were an expansion team. In 1971, they got Jeff Petrie, and they gave him 1.5. In 71, they got Sidney Wicks, gave him 1.5. They had the number 1 pick. I went out there, and my agent told them, okay, he wants 1.5, They didn't want to do that. They wanted to give me 800,000. And
Mm.
my agent at the time said, "No, we're not doing that. You want him to be the number one pick. We want 1.5." They didn't want to do that. He said, "You wait for Buffalo. Buffalo will give you your 1.5." Well, that was painful for me because everybody likes the prestige of being the number one pick, but in the end, the money won out. Uh, Blazers drafted LaRue Martin, gave him 800,000, and Buffalo. I was the second pick, and I made more than the number one pick. I made my 1.5 uh, at Buffalo. That's the deal that happened right there. The ABA, I wouldn't go into no ABA. They you know 1/3 of what the NBA was offering. There's no way I was going to go there. No way. So I don't know. Kennedy might. I didn't hear that. Maybe he did. I don't know. But I ended up going to Buffalo. That's where everything started for me. Best move that happened for me. I mean, it was an expansion team, and we didn't win a lot that first year, but they made a lot of changes after they started in December. I think I was averaging 6 points a game, and our all-star forward Bob Kaufman got hurt, and Jack Ramsey put me in the lineup to start because he was an old school coach. He didn't believe in starting rookies, but he had to. He started me from December to the end, and I averaged 33 points a game from December until the end, which ended up making me average like 18 points a game. I ended up making rookie of the year, and they decided, okay, Elvin Smith, we're gonna make this kid our center. And that's when they brought in Jim McMillan from the Lakers, Garfield Hurd from Chicago Bulls. Randy Smith came into his own. They drafted Ernie, great assist guy, and we won 20 more games. They made the change with that lineup there.
Neek?
Um, the last question I had for him is really, if you weren't a Hall of Famer, if you did not play basketball, what else was it that you feel as though you could have been great at, or as great at as you were as basketball?
I came from a family full of teachers. My mother was a teacher. My grandmother was a teacher. My father met my mother. He was teaching construction in Smithfield, North Carolina. I probably would have been a teacher. My uncles and aunts were teachers. I had teachers in my family. I probably would have been a school teacher. That's what I was before I discovered I was pretty good at athletics. Uh, you know, and I love baseball. I love baseball.
Yes.
Team that wanted me to play baseball, and I was really good at that. But basketball kind of took over because I started growing once I was 12 to 15. I grew so fast. Uh, I saw the advantages that I had on the basketball court because of my height. Why, I stuck with basketball over baseball.
I too played
Well, you,
baseball when I was younger. That was to be honest, between baseball, football, and basketball, I was better at baseball, but well, I was probably better at football, but I loved basketball more than either one. And baseball was the one that I had the accolades in. Low. That was the one where I'm going to championship games and stuff like that. So I get it. I was better at basketball. I was better at baseball, but my love was in basketball. So that's kind of where I trended to play and use most of my time.
That's what we did when we were young. I played football too, and I ended up stopping football because I had a knee injury and was out for 6 weeks in middle school. And one of my uncles said, "Son, your body's not made for football. You got a long, slender body. I'd stick with basketball or baseball." And I, I took his advice. It was great advice for me.
Mhm.
We have a super chat for you. One of the fans in the listening and watching live wants to know, in your opinion, who was better and harder in verses in the 70s out of Cowens, Walton, Hayes, West, Barry, Dr. J in the NBA?
Excluding the ABA. So just
Yeah.
their NBA version, yeah.
Who's the best player I played against?
I think that I think it was who was it harder to match up against? Cowens, Walton, Hayes, West, Barry, or Dr. J. That's a long list, but
Rick Barry.
Rick Barry.
Yeah, Barry.
Rick Barry was fantastic. He was definitely, you know, a hard cover for anybody. 6'7", could shoot from all over the court. He was good handling the ball also, and he had the fight out there. You know,
No, we had Bobby Dandridge on, and he ranked for him. It was Hondo players he matched up. Hondo, Barry, and Dr. J was the last one. And I was telling him that, I personally think Rick Barry's peak was the best out of all of them. The dude was like, 35 one year, best player on the NBA title team. Rick Barry was awesome.
awesome. He was awesome. I watched him and studied him. In fact, I think I beat him for the scoring title. We were neck and neck all year, and I ended up winning the scoring title over him. But he was, and we only played him. I think we played him twice back in the. He was definitely a hard cover for our. I didn't guard him. I had to guard Clifford Ray and the bigger guys, but that was left for Jim McMillan and Garfield Hurd. Thank goodness. He was a tough cover. Yeah.
Yeah, I just got two more questions. Fluent, you got anything else? Because I got two more, and then we'll wrap it up.
You can ask your questions. I'm just going to give them an invite, so I'll save that.
Okay.
To the end.
So here are my two questions. One, do you have any funny stories you can share about your time with the Heatles when it was LeBron, Wade, Bosh, those guys? And then any funny stories about that maybe we don't know about with the Showtime Lakers as well? Like something you could share with us.
Funny stories?
That you're allowed to share, I guess, is the caveat.
Yeah. And if you're not allowed to share them, we'd rather hear those.
Well,
The man in trouble.
I remember. I used to tease Kareem when we played Philly. I used to tell him, "Hey, bro, don't get no migraine headache today, because I do not want to be left out there by myself with Moses Malone." Moses was a terror against us. Rebounded. He might have 20 rebounds, 20 points, and I mean he'd get up for the games against Kareem. He'd have his best game against Kareem. And
yeah, unfortunately, as a Laker
hey,
fan,
if you ever want to see what he's talking about, please watch the '83 finals. And
well,
because I don't,
we were injured. That's, you have to be honest. James Worthy broke his leg. Norm Nixon shoulder separation. I had pulled muscle. That was, we didn't have enough firepower to deal with Philly in that, series because of all the injuries we had.
Then my other question is this. Oh yeah, and then do you got any LeBron or Wade or Heat stories you can share with us, like when those guys were winning titles?
Not, but I can't really think of guys professional. I think in the series, the first series against Dallas, I think we were up 15 home with 5-0.
Game two.
I think it was high five. They were high fiving and stuff and going crazy, and Dallas back in. So I think they learned their lesson, because we got this. He slapped Mari celebrate. He learned his lesson before, with that celebration early. Dallas came back and and which was heartbreaking, Oh, it's-
And then my final question is this, and then I wanted to know this, and I don't know if it was your mic, but you were breaking up a little bit on your last answer. My final question is this: those Showtime Lakers, nobody ever really looked at it like that, but they changed so much with all the players. You were there for a couple rings, but not all 5. If you could pick the top 12 guys on those Showtime Lakers, because I'd like everybody to see how deep they really were. If that just you could put the 12 best guys out of those title teams in the 80s, who would that be?
let me think. Okay, you got to put Kareem and Magic, James Worthy,
Obviously, you.
yeah, me, Norm Nixon, Michael Cooper,
Wilkes.
Jamal Wilkes, Byron. Silk is Jamal.
Yeah, no, that's what I was saying. Yeah,
Jamal. Who else?
What about would AC Green make the cut? Would Kurt Rambis make the cut?
I didn't play with AC. AC came after me, so I didn't play with AC.
Who was an awesome rebounder in those Lakers teams that nobody ever count is Mark Landsberger. That dude could rebound the ball.
He could rebound. Mark could rebound. Kurt was a hard hat guy for us.
What about Spencer Haywood? Spencer Haywood was on the 80 team.
Yeah, I wasn't there with Spencer.
Mm-hmm.
Me and Spencer played together in New York. I wasn't with Spencer in LA.
Mr. McAdoo, I don't know if you realize this. You played for every historic team. You played for the Lakers, the Celtics, the Knicks, the Pistons, the Sixers. You went through all the historic teams.
Yeah, all the historic teams. Yeah. Well, Chicago Bulls, I didn't play for them.
Well, they were an expansion team basically when you got there.
No, they were for a while. No, Chicago was there. They had Norm Van Leer, Chet Walker, Butterbean Love, Jerry.
We're releasing it. Well, I was going to say we just talked to Dick Motta, so we're well versed in the the Bulls beginnings and all that as well, because he he obviously got him their first division title.
Yeah. And remember, Detroit didn't get good until the Bad Boys got there. They weren't good until the Bad Boys got there. Isaiah Thomas and all those, that crew there.
But would you put Byron Scott on that list of 12?
Yeah, Byron Scott. Yeah, I put Byron in there. Yeah. How many guys did I name?
I think we're at 10. 11.
About 10.
But even that's good. We have 10 players that are, Hall of Fame, MVP, All-Stars. Like the Lakers were just so deep in the 80s.
Yeah, we were deep. We had like 6 guys or 7 guys that had made the All-Star team from that Laker team, and Coop's gonna be in the Hall of Fame this year.
And I was about to say, shout out to Coop for getting in the Hall of Fame. Absolutely.
He's gonna be in the Hall of Fame. So Jamal Wilkes, Kareem, Magic, James Worthy, myself. What's that? 6 guys right there.
Yeah. Hey, Mr. McAdoo, if you ever talk to the Lakers and they fixed this 2 years ago, but if you could pass along a message from me, I would just like to say this. I think it's pretty shitty of them to count Mikan's championship and there's no statue of him outside. So they count his 5 rings, but they don't put, and they just recently retired his number. So you know what I mean? Just tell him that's coming from me. I think it's pretty shitty. You count his titles and you don't put up a statue of him.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that. Well, he was I guess you Minneapolis Lakers, right?
But that's my point. You count his rings, part of your 17 titles.
We count the 17, yeah, we do.
So if you count his rings, he needs a statue.
You're probably right.
It's not ridiculous to say that.
Probably.
That's all I got. What was the request you had, Fluent? Because we got to go. We took up enough time.
You started talking about those players, and I immediately started thinking, how lucky am I as a Laker fan that I'm a Laker fan, and then they go ahead and draft my favorite college player, which was Worthy. So when you brought up Worthy, I had flashbacks of me being a happy guy. when I heard that. But my own, not request so much as to say, you had mentioned earlier you were in Toronto helping with a basketball movie. If you're ever in, that's where not right now, I'm in Texas right now, but I'm normally in Toronto. If you're ever back, you have an open invitation to come to I have a basketball academy, the Sports Fluent Basketball Academy. You are always welcome to come in. Maybe you want to scout some of our kids, but you are always welcome at the academy for sure. It would be an honor to host you.
I got a good friend up in Toronto that I see when I go up there. You're Sam McAdoo, the real estate guy?
Of course, yes.
Yeah, he's a friend of mine. Really?
My
daughter goes up there to play tournaments, that's who we stay with, Sam McAdoo.
Okay, yes. Sam has the seat, I believe, right next or right in front of Nav Bhatia, the super fan.
Super fan, yeah.
Yes,
yeah.
I see both of them every game that I go to, which is quite a few.
Okay. Yeah.
Well, let us know when you're in town. We'll definitely at least come out and see if someone's playing. We'll definitely come and watch for sure.
Okay. All right. Sounds good.
All right. Well, that is it for tonight. We want to thank our guest, Mr. McAdoo, for being so gracious with his time. Obviously, an open invitation to come back on the pod if you ever want to talk about it again. You can let all your constituents know if anybody feels like they are being disrespected. Obviously over here, we definitely respect them. Also, another place I tell everybody to do this, go to Vintage NBA on Reddit if you really want to see what type of love you get. And you will see all your fans just talk about all the things they appreciate you did for the game and the memories they had as a kid watching you and things like that. If you don't mind, we have an outro. We go 0 to 200 real quick. Or if you'd like to leave now, that's fine as well. But we go 0 to 200 before we leave real quick. So just real quick.
Till it's finished, please don't make me laugh with that half-ass gimmick. I'm about to get mine and it's about time. Call us Grindhouse, everybody in a house grind. I'm just doing me, I ain't trying to outshine. Trying to kill my vibe is how you get outlined. I don't do it for the views and the likes, boy. I'm just giving you what I wrote last night, boy. I don't care if it isn't what you like, boy. My flow is fucking awesome, ain't it, white boy? Feeling
Woo! And and please, if you're ever talking to Magic, tell him thank you for everything.
Okay.
Mr. McAdoo, we thank you.